We continue to follow the breaking news. Federal prosecutors have indicted the president's son, Hunter Biden, on 3 gun charges after his plea deal collapsed.
And joining to give us some perspective, and specifically his, Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz. Professor, great to have you with us, as always, on American Agenda. Your initial reaction when you heard the news?
I was not surprised at all. Once the deal fell apart, once the judge said that there was no meeting of the minds and there was no plea bargain that she wanted to rubber stamp, it became clear that the Justice Department would try to indict him for this relatively minor crime. It's probably part of just litigation strategy. I predict, and all of my predictions so far have come true, that it will not come to trial. That this just ups the ante a little bit, but there will be a plea bargain. Hunter Biden will plead guilty to this, acknowledge that he did not honestly answer the question about his drug use, will be convicted, and will get a probationary sentence. That's the way this will end.
And what about the tax charges? And what about claims, at least certainly look like possible foreign agent FARA violations? And then there's the whole Hunter Biden family getting paid millions of dollars. What's your expectation there?
He will be indicted on the tax charges. Remember, the tax charges are not failure to pay the taxes, but failure to pay them in a timely manner. That, too, would result in a sentence of probation. As far as the more serious charges, nobody knows whether there is a serious investigation here. I have suggested that there ought to be special counsel appointed to investigate the president in any role he may have played. And that person should be beyond reproach, not somebody who is identified either with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, but should be somebody who is non-political. And that person should look into any possible relationship between Hunter Biden's dealings in Ukraine and other places and the president of the United States. That's a very, very serious investigation. Anytime the president himself is investigated, you really need the most careful kind of objective investigation.
Professor, you mentioned that you think this is part of the litigation strategy. What specifically do you mean by that, and how so?
They've upped the ante by indicting him. Remember, previously they allowed him to go into a diversionary program, which wouldn't even result in a conviction on his record. He wouldn't even have to plead guilty. Here, he's going to have to make a plea bargain if he wants to not have a trial, and he's going to have to either plead guilty or what's called nolo contendere. Many judges don't accept a nolo contendere plea, a plea that says, I don't contest it. So in the end, he'll probably plead guilty and probably get a probationary sentence. So this will have increased the leverage that the prosecutor has on the Biden legal defense team.
I think the nolo contendere, I remember from Spiro Agnew. Am I right about that?
That's right. That goes back a long, long time.
Yes,
but
as I do.
His very excellent lawyers, who I know very well, managed to get a plea in Maryland. I think it was nolo contendere. That is rare. I've had that happen a few times in my career with clients, but normally the judges say, look, either guilty or not guilty. So I think that in this case.
So the gain through going through all this, where the judge said, hold on, this is too much of a sweetheart deal, is more leverage against him if he does something wrong down the road?
Yeah, and also the fact that there'll be a conviction on his record rather than just a diversion. So it ups the ante for him too. Here's the way I think it's going to play out. It's a little technical. He will do what's called a stipulated plea, and that is he will not deny that he lied on his application, but he will preserve his legal right to appeal that on constitutional grounds. And there he's going to get a lot of support from right-wing Republicans, because his argument is going to be that the Second Amendment doesn't permit the kind of restrictions of gun ownership that were implicit in his answering the question about his gun use. So it's going to be a fascinating trial, if there is a trial, because we're going to see some people who support the Second Amendment supporting Hunter Biden if he does what's called a stipulated plea. That is, he will admit to the facts, but not admit to the law.
But, Professor, you don't think there is going to be a trial, so...
I don't think there'll be a real trial. There may be a trial in which there's no factual dispute,
Okay.
but the judge has to make a legal ruling about whether or not the questions put to him were constitutional. That's
All
going to
right.
be the
All right. Professor Alan Dershowitz, always educational and insightful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.